Good morning. Anybody home?
Yeah, my mute was on.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Betty. Hey, Naomi. Happy Monday. How we all doing? I think everybody's
Staying out
off.
of trouble.
Yeah, I think everybody's off getting a cup of coffee.
Yeah, probably right there.
How was your weekend?
Did you send? Excuse me. Did you send out that image?
You know, I did not.
Okay, just check and make sure it didn't get lost in my email stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna send those back out this afternoon after I got out of class. Yeah, I had kind of a busy weekend doing nothing.
Okay, well, I understand. I've been there, done that.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I did all kinds of things this weekend, but got a lot done. But at the same time, you kind of feel like sometimes you don't, you really didn't get anything done.
Yep.
I actually had my brother over, and my brother is in the tech field. He does like cybersecurity for a lot of these big financial firms and things like that. So he's very computer savvy. And he came over and he helped me on Saturday evening, fixed dinner for us. And he came over and spent about 3.5 hours going, with his computer going through our router, which belongs to AT&T, and then setting up, like a booster, like they call it a repeater, in the house, so I can get Wi-Fi down in this end of the house, and that was fun to see, that it literally took him 3.5 hours to do what, I was pulling my hair out trying to do, and I probably put about 4 or 5 hours into it, and really couldn't get it any further than he did, at first, but he figured it out, and I'm glad he has a tech background because
That helps a lot.
It does, but yeah, that was interesting to see that somebody in that field, would struggle as much as I did, with trying to get this thing set up. Crazy. So what'd you end up doing over the weekend?
I did some drawing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on my bear. It's in the background there.
Yeah.
He's coming along. It's pastel, and
yeah, I was going to ask you that because it looked like pastel.
Yeah, it is. And,
okay.
So I've got a couple layers down, but I got to put a few more layers down on it. But anyway.
Okay. Well, it's looking good.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we got 8 of us here. Let's see who's here. We got June. We got Veronica. Hey, Veronica. We got Betty Bates. Bernice is here. Naomi. Jackie is here, and you. Okay. All right. So, it's about time. Okay. So without further ado, first of all, happy Monday, everybody. And what I'm going to basically do today, I've got 2 different artists I wanted to show you. But I think I'm going to start off with a couple of short videos. And one is, I think, really, really going to be very helpful. The first one, though, is kind of fun. And it's about abstract art. And I know people have different feelings about abstract art. And, you know, some of you like it, some of you don't. And, you know, but this, I thought this guy had a pretty interesting take on abstract art and what it was all about. So give it a listen. I think, you know, keep an open mind. I think you'll learn something. Let's see. Yes, here we go. I mean, I certainly did. I thought he was. All right, so let's make it full screen. There we go. And let's start it from the very beginning, so you can get full advantage of it.
We've all probably looked at some type of abstract or non-representational art in our lives. Abstract works may still have recognizable forms. But what about non-representational works? These are works that don't appear to represent anything. Sometimes we may see a work of art and feel like, I could have done that, or a kid could do that. Other times we may also wonder, what is it that makes this particular piece of art look good and others not? Why is this piece hanging in this gallery? Why is it famous? And what's so special about it? But more often than not, there may be a little more going on than meets the eye. Some artworks may rely heavily on contextual knowledge relating to the conditions on how or why it was made, including artistic techniques. Have you ever tried to create abstract art and it didn't go so well? Maybe you felt at a loss on how to start, or carried on and it turned out to look kind of like mud. It looks so easy, doesn't it? Well, I'm here to tell you about some composition tricks that might help you out. Composition refers to how you organize and arrange elements in your artwork. There are some popular composition design tricks that you may not have noticed before. I recommend choosing a color scheme beforehand. Beginners do not often do this, and it's often poorly reflected in the work. A simple color scheme can unite and make your work appear more attractive, even if you simply decided on a monochromatic scheme. Anyway, let's get started. Here are the top 16 basic designs of abstract compositions. The first is horizontal. Here, everything is happening just as it sounds, horizontally. Elements are arranged going across the picture frame. This composition design can suggest peace or calmness. Next is vertical. It's obviously the opposite of horizontal, and everything is happening vertically, suggesting stability and strength. Again, as the title suggests, everything is happening diagonally. This is also used to suggest movement, action, or agitation, and that's why it's also heavily used in graphic design. Number 4 is the cruciform or L shape. Essentially, it's when a cross form is used, and this can apply both in vertical or horizontal modes. We can also design using symmetry. This is where things are balanced or divided equally on both sides. Opposite to symmetrical is asymmetrical. This balance tactic, in its basic form, creates something big on one side and something smaller on the other. The 7th is radial or radiating. This balance tactic utilizes elements coming out from a center point, as in the rays of the sun. Next is circular. Here, everything is based on curves. It is very organic due to the lack of corners or points and can also suggest motion. Grid. A grid is used to arrange elements into rows and columns. This can create stability and order in the work. Coming in at number 10 is overlapping frames. Think of this as overlapping boxes that can also vary in size. It possesses a strong sense of structure in the work. Constellation, like stars in the sky, are kind of scattered around. Rhythm is used with a slight pattern and connections are made between these different parts. Meandering. This design is all over the frame with no real focus. However, control is important so as not to make it confusing. The next one is a little harder to understand. Mandalas and triangular formations are popular with this design, as the works may have religious inspirations or connections. It is called spirituality. 14, tension. Tension or uneasiness is created, and this can make the viewer feel uncomfortable. Think as if something in the work is about to tip or fall. You probably encounter this next one when you take a picture with your phone or camera. The golden section refers to perfect balance and has been summarized into the rule of thirds. Emphasis is placed on one of the 4 intersecting points between the vertical and horizontal lines. This is why in movies you often see people talking slightly off center like me now, instead of in the middle. It just looks more visually pleasing. The last one is the S or Z curve. You will often find this in photographic landscape work that features a river or road. It helps lead the eye down through or across the image. All of these designs can help as a starting point with your own work, along with color and other principles and elements of art. Speaking of which, movement, repetition, pattern, and rhythm all interact with these designs. When creating abstract art, you can also think about your approach. Will you have visible brush marks, go smooth or flat, go hard edge, or have color fields? Hard edge is characterized by areas of flat color with sharp, clear, or hard edges. Color field is characterized by large areas of color, typically without strong tonal contrasts or a defined point of focus. Action painting is characterized by spontaneous dribbles, splashes, or smears onto the canvas, rather than being carefully applied. Remember, color, approach, and a composition design can all help improve your work. Which will you try out today? Best of luck. Mr. CTV.
Mr. CTV.
Mr. CTV.
Okay, other than
Hey guys.
slowing him down and all right, trying to get out of this. There we go. So other than slowing him down, you know, so that you could actually think about each of the elements that he talked about, what did you think of that video?
Quick.
Yeah, it was quick. Yes, it was very fast review.
Really, I mean, basically, some of the images were there for such a short period of time, it was kind of hard to picture what he was saying with what we were seeing. That was.
But if you, okay, I guess my question would be, what did you see in there? What did you think that was really all about? You know, in other words, what did you get out of that video?
Design.
Uh-huh. Okay.
There's not just color slapped on a piece on a pad. It has a form and a reason. It's just not, you can't just put your colors on. You have to know if you're trying to do something diagonally to express a certain emotion or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just colors and just something comes from it.
Okay, I think you're getting close. Anybody else?
As I say, the elements of abstract are basically the same as we use in anything else, landscape, portrait, whatever, as far as position, things like that. So the basic elements of art are the same across the board.
Yeah, to some degree, I think that's right. Okay. Anybody else want to take a whack at it? Anybody? Okay. All right. So here's what I want you to get out of that video, if nothing else.
Okey-dokey.
Is that John and Bernice were very close to it in the sense that, yes, the composition has a lot to do with how you perceive a piece of artwork. And you have different types of compositions, horizontal, vertical, diagonal, and they all imply different things, or people have an emotional reaction to them, based on the composition. If you wanted to make a painting that was very quiet, right, and calming, probably a more random, broken up composition is not something you would want to try to do that with, because it in fact kind of works against what you're trying to create, which is something calming and quiet. And so you might choose to make something that has more of a horizontal movement in the overall composition so that you can kind of create that still quiet feeling. You know, if you wanted to make something look, you know, solid and kind of, strong, you know, again, vertical is a good choice, because there's something about the kind of directions and movement to those compositions that people have an emotional reaction to. And so thinking a lot about how you arrange things, you know, in your paintings can go a long way in helping you achieve, you know, what you're looking for. You know, as far as, you know, how do you want people to feel about this painting? And it's the composition, but it's also color and, you know, how you use the material, whether or not it's a very loose sort of painting, or there's, you know, very flat, kind of clean shapes in there that are very defined. You know, there's a lot of different elements that you can play with as an artist. But one of the key elements that, you know, most people really don't think about until they really get into, you know, doing something is, how are you going to compose it? How are you going to set it up on that page to help sort of enhance what you're, you know, what you're trying to achieve as far as, you know, a feeling, you know, with how people look at it and react to it. So, you know, I think at some point I'm going to try to go through that video, and I'm going to, you know, try to break it down and put it into some kind of document that I can send all of you, so that you can kind of look at it and think about it a little bit more. I know it went by really, really fast, but I thought he covered a lot of really good stuff in there. And, you know, I would encourage you to kind of think about it. Next painting or any kind of piece of artwork that you're kind of creating, spend a little more time, you know, thinking about the composition. And
Charles, was the name of the video Basic Designs in Abstract Art?
yeah.
Okay, I missed it. Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, but it's a very short, it's like about a 5-minute video. But he covers, you know, a lot of ground in a very short time. And like I said, it'd be well worth the time just to go through it and just to make notes, you know, and try to, you know, get a good understanding of what those compositional elements were. So anyhow, and particularly any of you who are interested in, you know, doing any kind of abstract art, but also, you know, just, it doesn't really matter, you know, whether you're doing representational art or abstract. You know, you can apply it, all of those different compositional approaches to your very own artwork. And so that being said, I'm going to jump in, and I'm going to share with you 2 different artists, okay? And one I'm going to start with is, he's actually an illustrator, or, you know, not a quote unquote fine artist, but I think you'll find that, let's see, where is he at? Okay, there we go. I'm pretty sure that's his. Let's see. Everybody seeing kind of a boat?
Yep.
Okay, good. Yay. Okay, and give me just a second here. Yeah, so this guy, his name is Rick Mapes, Mapes. And my morning phone call, of course. Yeah. Anyway, let me blow this up. I got these off his website. I was kind of hoping that they would be a little bit higher resolution. But he basically bills himself as a commercial illustrator and designer. Okay. But he sells like prints and stuff like that. But again, you know, the reason that I kind of picked, you know, him as kind of a person to talk about today was, if you look at any of his work, it sort of borderlines on representational and abstraction all at the same time. You know, some of his images get very, you know, traditional and kind of representational in a sense, but you know, if you look at his composition and design, when you look at the composition here, what would you categorize that? Anybody? Is it vertical? Is it horizontal? Is it diagonal?
Horizontal and diagonal.
Diagonal mostly.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is vertical too.
Vertical and
Yeah,
circular.
Diagonal.
diagonal I would categorize it too.
yeah. Overall, I would say it's a diagonal. Okay, you've got this really strong, you know, diagonal, almost, you know, dividing the image in half, right? And then he breaks that up with several different, you know, vertical forms, right?
Mhm.
And it's off-centered.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. This is not, you know, that lighthouse is not in the center. The center point is really kind of about right here, right where that window is. And so you see, you know, his point of interest or focal point is really up here around the lighthouse. And so you see it's off center. He's got this strong diagonal composition going on. Okay. Look at the contrast as far as, you know, dark and light. And, you know, if you look at the value structure of this, you know, really his highest degree of contrast is really right in this area. Okay. Yeah. Now, you know, he has, you know, other elements like off to the side here. But notice that they're there, but he didn't emphasize them, you know, with like really, really strong value contrast. Okay. You know, he's got a good, you know, a good kind of structural contrast between, say, hard edges and soft edges. See? Again, you know, very sharp, very clean against, you know, these things that are very almost kind of abstract and loose all through the painting. You know, same thing with the sky. You know, rather than painting like traditional clouds, things like that, it's really kind of more of just an abstract background.
Can
So-
you explain why he, in the foreground, he made the rocks light in the front and darker here at the top? I don't understand how why he put the light rocks at the bottom in the front instead of the dark one.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Okay, do those rocks come forward? Do they?
Yeah.
Do they look closer to you than, say, these? Right? And so he created a value contrast here, but also, if you notice what happens from the focal point as he moves outward, what happens, you know, as he moves toward the edge? Really kind of like on, you know, well, really the two sides here.
It becomes lighter.
Yeah, well, it begins to kind of fade out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. There's less contrast. It becomes kind of almost like it's misty or, you know, it just begins to sort of fade away, right? And
Yeah.
so what he's doing is he's lowering the value contrast and contrasting color and edges and everything out here. Again, keeping everything sharp and higher contrast right in this area, because this is where he wants you to look. You know, and when you know, if you're out, you know, looking, you know, let's say that you're along a stream bed or something like that, and you know, you see some rocks, you know, they're not always dark, are they? Depends on what the light is doing. And so, you know, again, they're just sort of interesting shapes going on in there. And, you know, and it's a suggestion that there are rocks there.
Yes.
But
seems like a distraction.
that's distracting you? Huh.
It seems like, yeah.
Yeah, not so much for me. I don't know why. Okay. But that's interesting. Okay. So you're finding, you know, this part distracting down here. So
Yeah.
do this. Take your hand, okay, and cover that area over. Okay.
Yeah.
And then take it away. And which one looks better to you? You know, which one works better, having it there or taking it out?
Taking it out, but it gives me a headache. I mean, having it there.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I kind of agree with you.
It makes the lighthouse sit back more.
Mhm.
I know that.
Yeah.
That's
It,
why
yeah, I think it's kind of a judgment call one way or the other. I mean, he doesn't really need it. You know, if you cover it over,
yeah.
the painting's not missing anything without it, other than the fact that it does give you one more element that gives you some depth and some distance in there. And without it, it kind of, you're right there at the lighthouse. With it there, the lighthouse sits back a little bit.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, as, you know, if I were going to paint something like that, or you were, would you have to have those rocks there? No.
No.
Yeah. You could have something like that or not. And either one would work. You know, when we look at this, when we started off with this image, this boat, you know, again, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in there. And again, I wish that, you know, these were higher resolution and that you could get a clearer image. But he's doing some really nice stuff, you know, in there. And the other thing is, you know, look at how he's playing with the color. And how, you know, you would kind of think, okay, well, this is, you know, this boat has got this side that's white. And does he paint it white? No. See, it's this blue, but it's lighter in value. And you see it kind of, the color sort of transitions from this green over to blue. And there's this big underlying, you know, pattern of, you know, this shift in color across the composition.
Is that the actual color? Because it looks just like the colors I get when I take a shot of a TV picture. It comes out blue, a lot of blue in it,
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually the color. You know, he, you know, as we kind of go through his work, a lot of the images that he builds, you know, they're kind of what you would call composite images, where he's taking different elements and putting them together. And so he ties his whole piece together with sort of an underlying, you know, color theme. And you'll see that as we go through his work, you know. So this one is kind of, you know, green to this blue. The next one, again, I've got to blow all these up. You know, if you look at it, again, you know, this blue, you know, or cool to warm, right? And I mean, if you took out the motorcycle and the rider, you basically got an abstract painting there, right?
Mhm.
You know,
Right.
look at all the different, you know, kind of transitions and shapes. You know, just really nice, kind of juicy, you know, plays with color, right? And then emerging out of all of that is this image, you know, of a rider on a motorcycle.
What medium is this?
Pardon?
What medium is he using? This
Don't
oil?
know. Yeah, I doubt it. I would kind of think it's acrylic.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be my guess. You know, it sort of, you know, I think just looking at the texture and the surface and things, I think it has to be acrylic. You know, I mean, if you look at a lot of his stuff, he's not doing like a lot of real subtle blending and gradations, right? You know, there's definite color changes and value changes and things, but you know, it just looks more like acrylic as a medium. Yeah, same thing. Okay, so just for a moment, try to forget that there's a guy standing there with a tennis racket, right? This is, I think, I want to say this is McEnroe, but it's not. It's maybe Raphael something. But again, look at what the color does. So it starts off, you know, very light, almost white, goes into kind of orange, red, and then into these blues, violets, and, you know, black. And you see it's this very loose, very abstract background. But you see it doesn't go away. It travels through the whole image. See? So it's almost like, you know, he's ghosted over, you know, this background in here. And so all of that, you know, underlying structure of the color becomes part of the image. And again, look at where he sharpened the edges and the contrast. See, it's really like right in here and right in here on the tennis racket. So you see, it's almost like he's treating these two areas almost equally, right? Because they're both really, you know, kind of the focal point of the story. You know, he's telling you who this guy is, what he's all about.
I've noticed also on the one before and this one that he drew vertical lines. That he painted vertical lines in.
He painted vertical lines? Where?
You see, you should go to the left, almost to the edge. You see the little purple line going down. Yeah, in right almost in the middle, you see the red lines going down.
Yeah. Well, they're moving vertically, but it's like a drip mark. You know, it's where the paint ran.
But that's deliberate, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say it's very deliberate. You know. Yeah. And it's kind of interesting because it's like, did he do that and it was there earlier, and then he very carefully kind of built in the contrast to kind of create, you know, these shapes emerging out of it, or was that a later layer that he put on? And
Except that those same lines are in the painting that's just before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. And see, that's the thing, you know, that you kind of wonder about, you know, is were those in the initial background, you know, or did he add those in, you know, as a layer as another layer of color after he had his image developed and everything else. That would be kind of scary. So, because you could lose a lot of stuff that way. But
how do those drip marks enhance his painting? I mean,
well, okay, let's go back and kind of look at the tennis player. They're there, right? And remember, what do vertical elements do?
strength.
Right. Yeah, stability, strength, right? And so, you know, if in a sense, you know, it gives you, when you play those vertical movements against this diagonal, right?
Yeah.
See, you know, again, it gives it some kind of contrast, right? You know, different things move in different directions, you know. And so there's, again, you know, if you stop thinking about this as a tennis player and you start looking at it, you know, kind of as just an abstract painting, you know, there's different design elements, you know, that he's combining along with color, texture, hard, soft edges, value, contrast. So that's creating these images, you know, that are really, you know, pretty dynamic and, you know, have a lot of impact, you know. And that's one of the things I like about his work is that even though, you know, he's working more as a commercial illustrator, there's a lot of elements in there that as a painter, as a fine artist, you can pick up and use, right? There's a lot that you can learn there. So
That background definitely shows the action and stress of the person he's highlighting.
yeah. Yeah, so here, you know, he's doing more of like a portrait, right? But rather than just doing like a conventional portrait of somebody just sitting there, right, like right in front of you, and you do this beautiful face, what's going on? You know, look at the composition of it. Is it more diagonal or is it more vertical?
Diagonal, her hair.
Yeah, well, yeah, the whole thing, if you kind of just squint your eye down for a moment. And so overall, there's sort of this dark shape that's moving, you know, across the composition. And then there's a light, so light and dark. And it's kind of divided, not, you know, not quite corner to corner. So the light overall is a little bit smaller element than, you know, the big block of dark. Yeah.
I think it's sort of vertical. The background indicates that that light blue makes it vertical, plus the shape, I mean, the figure's face, the body is upright in a vertical.
Yeah, but is it really? I mean, it's
Well,
kind
I looked at that blue part first, I think.
Yeah.
After I saw her.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of see this very strong diagonal, you know, feel in the whole piece. Now, you know, again, you know, he's contrasting that with, okay, so, you know, the direction, like the center line of the face is moving almost vertical. It's still slightly tipped, right? And the other thing is, you know, look at where our eye level is. Our eye level is not up here with hers. Our eye level is like way down here. We're sort of looking up at her. Okay? So she's kind of moving up and away from us in a way. And so that the effect of that is that it kind of sets up this mood or this feeling to it. And this is really much softer, say, than like the motorcycle rider or some of the other things that we've seen, you know. But yet, at the same time, you know, this isn't like a, how do I guess, I don't know how to describe this. you know, it's not like a kind of a soft, sentimental, you know, feeling to this painting. There's something going on. You know, it's almost, you know, there's some kind of mystery to it, I guess. Anybody else get that?
Yeah, but she kind of looks like a superior being to the viewer. Kind of, she's aloof.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Here's, yeah, let's go up, not down. Here's something that, you know, you guys have drawn a few times, you know, a barn. I've thrown a few of those at you. And so, you know, you could have sat there and, you know, painted a very straightforward, you know, very traditional looking, you know, structure there. But what did he do? See, again, you know, it's like the way he's designing, you know, the overall composition, you know, negative space against positive. And see, none of this is just placed right in the center. You know, he's got this shape, and then this shape. Actually, it's like three. It's like you kind of get this, you know, this element here at the bottom, and it kind of leads you to this, which kind of then overlaps and touches this. So your eye kind of comes in, you know, from the bottom up and then across to the left. So really, you know, I guess the thing I want you to kind of get out of this is A, look at the use of color, but then also look at how he composes the page. And he does it in a really kind of nice, interesting way. Now he's using different elements like type, you know, in the background. He does that a lot, you know, where he'll ghost, you know, type elements, logos, things like that into the composition. But, you know, if you look at this figure, right, you know, he's doing something that we've talked about, you know, quite a bit, where generally you would kind of say, you know, that this is kind of a no-no. You know, look at the direction that she's looking at, and then she's so close to this edge right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what that does is that sets up a lot of tension, right? It kind of makes you feel uncomfortable, like she's kind of squeezed in there, right? But if he had moved her back over here and left all this kind of negative space out there for her to look into, it would have probably lost, you know, some of the action, some of the dynamic feeling that it's got. So again, you know, your placement of elements, you know, in a composition, you know, they have a lot to do with the viewer's perception. Now here's a pretty, you know, straightforward, you know, landscape. Sky, water, trees, right? Land masses. But look what he
Kind
does.
of boring. Kind
Pardon?
of boring.
Kind of
It's
boring.
kind of boring
Really? Okay. Kind of
compared
remind.
to
Yes.
the other painting. Is exciting.
Mm-hmm.
The tennis player is exciting. This is kind of boring. No?
Well, okay. This has got a much more sedate, kind of quieter feel to it, right? Where the tennis
Kind of
player.
ordinary. It's ordinary too.
Idyllic.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, when I look at this, I guess you could call it pastoral, right? It kind of gives you this calm feeling, where if you look at the tennis player, you don't get a calm feeling, do you?
But this is kind of you've seen this over and over again.
Okay,
That I feel.
all right, and that's fine. All right. You know, when I like this particular image, when I look at it, it kind of reminds me of some of the paintings by another illustrator by the name of Maxfield Parrish. You know, it's kind of got that feeling to it. But you know, you take a landscape, and you know, when you look at this, you know, he's been really very selective about where he wants you to look, and it's kind of a triangle, like right in here. You know, and that's really the painting right there. You know, these tree trunks and the rocks, you know, against the water. And again, I wish the resolution was much higher on this, because you lose a lot of the contrast, I think, between this background and here. But, here's another like landscape. And again, either one of these, if you really look at them, you know, they're almost really abstract paintings. You know, there's a suggestion that there's, where'd it go? Here it is. You know, that there's a building, an old barn, something here, that there are trees, right? And see, this is, again, you know, probably a more horizontal composition, you know, than vertical or diagonal.
Yeah, see, that looks diagonal to me, but especially because of the roof. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a diagonal element in here, but overall, you know, if you look, you know, you've got a horizon line, right? And you've got about 1/3 on the bottom, 2/3 on the top. So it's a very kind of stable, you know, kind of quiet, you know, composition. Then we get into these guys. Now you see, think about the tennis player and how he had the tennis player kind of up against the edge, right? And looking really kind of almost out of the composition. And then he's got this guy going the opposite direction, right? And so he's left more negative space over there. But he's also got this element of the guitar, you know, moving in that direction as well. So. Harbor. Okay. And again, you know, you've got this contrast of, you know, this very horizontal composition overall with these vertical elements, you know, the mast of the ships and things.
That looks very active.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's not a quiet.
And he has those lines again.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, you'll find him in just about everything he does, you know, these drip marks and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you know, look at how he's using color and how he's setting up the composition.
Mm-hmm.
Why is his name on there? So you won't copy it, or you see his name all over the place?
Right. Yes, it's called a watermark. Yeah.
Which means what?
Well, he's putting that in there so that people don't lift the image and use it commercially.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
He's good. He's very good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Very good. I mean, to me, I like this kind of stuff.
What is the medium on this? Because some of it looks like watercolors and
Mhm.
others,
Yeah.
it looks
Yeah. I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm thinking that it is acrylic.
okay.
And the reason that I would say it's acrylic is that I'm just looking at the surface textures and the way that that kind of color, one layer, kind of sits over another one. And it has kind of that back and forth between this feeling of oil paint and watercolor. And about the only medium that I know of that you can pull that off is acrylic.
Okay.
The only thing that I love this painting, by the way, but there's a real issue here with what Michael has been accused of, is look at his hand on the basketball. When I played basketball way back when, that if your hand was below the equator of the ball, that was called palming, and you're carrying the ball.
Yeah.
And he's carrying that ball.
Yeah.
Now, what's the reason for the arm going off the page?
You mean this over here on the left?
Yes. What's that supposed to do
Do you need it?
to the viewer?
Do you need it? Do you need the arm to be on there?
I wouldn't mind a little bit of the arm. I don't know.
Okay, so that means that you would bring the composition, probably out to, a couple
Right.
inches.
A little bit of the arm, because I like his arm. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. And if you, as the artist, wanted to, include that, you could.
Would you do that?
They generally tell you don't have a figure, go off the page at a joint, like an elbow, a knee.
Okay. Yeah.
And so, he's cropped it in a little bit further. He hasn't come right there to the elbow, which is a good thing. But yeah, it doesn't really bother me,
It's a beautiful painting.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
it would bother me more if he didn't have it on. So, but again, this is what you would call a composite image. See, he's got several images and he's kind of tying them all together. But yeah, the color and everything,
Beautiful.
To the flesh tones, things like that are really, really nicely done. And here's another one of his racing images.
His sports image kind of reminds me of Neiman a little bit, the sports artist.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I mean, Neiman was more sort of abstract,
Yeah,
and
much more
Lewis
abstract.
is painterly, but yeah. But yeah, the color, the intensity of the color and just the composition.
Beautiful.
Yeah, everything is really dynamic in a lot of his stuff. So, nice value contrast. This one you almost lose, but you got a dancer there. So
That's dynamic and dramatic.
mm-hmm.
All
Yeah.
that red.
Right. And notice, you're looking at what the action of the body is doing. See, he just takes off her head. Because it's not about who she is, or what she looks like, her face. It's her body, how it moves. Yeah. Okay. See, there's again, you get this very vertical figure
Lovely. Lovely.
with a strong horizontal, in here, moving across the page. See? And so remember, they called that a crucible, like a T, right?
Yep.
So yeah, so it kind of creates a shape here, you know, a shape there. You know. See, again, you know, looking at the composition of this, the different elements. And again, you know, look at how he uses the color, the background, you know, and it kind of flows through the image. And, you know, he uses it as a unifying element, you know, of tying everything together.
What do you think the first color was that he put on that?
Hard to say.
Blue?
Probably blue, you know,
Mhm.
yeah, probably blue.
Oh,
You
this
know.
is great. This is great.
Say, but and I think this is the last one I have of this. See, so you know, you could do a painting like this, and you could focus on the boat, and the boat would, you know, with the whole superstructure and everything else. And instead, he cropped it. So he cropped it in much tighter, and it's really more about the reflection of the boat in the water, and then the background of what's behind the boat. You know, the trees, things like that. And the way that the water is moving, you know, kind of getting that shimmering effect. And this is the first image that I saw of his. And made me go look him up. So, but again, you know, just look at the use of the color, you know, beautiful stuff going on in there. You know, it's like you could take a canvas and, you know, if you left out, you know, the image of the lacrosse player and just, you know, you just kept the background elements, you know, and make a wonderful painting all in itself.
I honestly get those, I mean, it's in all of them, that technique of almost like like it's oxidized or acid. I can't recall what that, with those splotchy.
Oh, you mean these little?
Yeah.
You know, I would say they're like drips and spatters that, you know, he's layered in there of either lighter or darker colors. Another way that he could be doing that is with using isopropyl alcohol.
Right. Yeah, that on watercolors that will make that kind of effect.
And that's what I was wondering. That's what I was thinking, something like that, right?
Yeah. Well, and it will also make that kind of effect with acrylics. So yeah, you can use, like, you know, put down a wet layer of acrylic and then drip isopropyl alcohol into it, and it will kind of create these little kind of bursts, things like that in there. So, and my guess is, you know, he's using something like that, or some other kind of chemical agent, you know, possibly acetone, something like that, to create a resist. And it could be acetone, though acetone has, I mean, it's a very strong chemical, and it would definitely, you know, maybe even eat into the paper or the board underneath it. So I don't know, you know, it's something you can experiment with.
And that's what I was thinking, acetone, when I said acid. I couldn't quite remember what would cause that. Yeah, I was thinking acetone, yes.
Okay. Well, another thing you could try is, and I would encourage all of you to do this. Take a little test board, whatever medium you're using, and use things like, what would happen if I sprinkle vinegar into a wet surface? What would happen if I sprinkled or sprayed acetone? I wouldn't recommend acetone because, again, it's, a really toxic medium. But, again, like isopropyl alcohol, salt, try different things, and work it into a wet surface, just spray it on or drip it on and see how the paint reacts to it. And olive oil is another one. If you put down like a layer of paint and let that set up and then drip olive oil on it and then try to put another layer of color over it, and how the olive oil resists, the next layer of paint. That is, if it's a water-based paint. Right? So there's lots of different ways.
Would olive oil then dry, or would it stay in a wet state?
Kind of greasy.
Well, it will stay wet for a while. It will eventually dry. It will take a couple of days for it to finally just, dry out. The other thing you can do is, after you lay that paint on there, let it begin to set up, and then just take like a soft cloth or a paper towel and, dab up any of the excess. I would just let it dry though. I wouldn't try to mess with it too much. But any kind of oil resist, you can use with a water-based medium. So. Yeah. So any thoughts about his stuff? Anybody got anything they want to say before we go away?
He's a commercial artist. Is this for advertising?
Yeah, he's basically focused right now as an illustrator.
I like that his work is acrylic. I like that.
Yeah.
Because most people we see, it's all oils.
Mhm.
I like that acrylic look.
Yeah. It's amazing, what you can do with acrylic. I mean, I painted with acrylic for years, and it's great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it dries fast. You can put lots of layers. There's, I would say, as far as versatility and the range of what you can do with the paint itself, acrylic is probably the most versatile medium out there by far. Yeah, because I mean, you can make it look all kinds of different ways. You make it look like a watercolor. You can make it look, almost like gouache, or very hard edge, very flat, or it can look very painterly. It's and you can't do that with all those different mediums. Like, you're not going to get those kinds of effects with watercolor. Just not going to do it. You can get some of them, but not all of them. So.
I liked his work.
Yeah. Last week when you showed the woman who did the horse and the color pencils, that just blew my mind the way that looked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't remember the artist's name though.
Yeah, I showed her last week. Right. Yeah. There was another artist. I think it was a guy who did. It's a pretty simple thing. It was a tree down by the water's edge, and it looked like maybe something had fallen into the water. And again, another colored pencil piece.
Mm-hmm. Very nice.
I mean, really, really incredible stuff. So there's a lot of artists out there working a lot of different media, and doing some really, really amazing stuff. So yeah, you can go out, you can find inspirational sources in all kinds of different places. One of the places I go to all the time is Facebook, and I run across a lot of these people, and it's like, who is that? What are they doing? And so, you know, you go from Facebook and you go look them up, you know, Google them, you know, try to find a website, something for them, look at their work, you know, find out a little bit about them, you know, where they're from and, you know, kind of what they're doing. And you can learn a lot, you know. Another thing is, you know, watching like demos, you know, demonstration videos like on YouTube, stuff like that. There's a lot of artists out there working that have videos of them actually painting. And just, you know, they may not explain all the different mediums and things that they're using off, but just watching the process that they go through. A lot of times you can pick up different ideas. And that being said, let's see how we're doing time-wise. That's 11:04. I'm going to play this this video, and it's by Streamline Publishing, and they do things like Plein Air Magazine and Art Connoisseur and stuff like that. Really interesting artists, though, and you know, we talk about a lot about turning form and about creating volume and things, you know, in your painting so that they don't look flat. And I think this guy has, you know, a really good, solid, you know, foundation. And it's probably about I think about a 40-minute video. And it will take us kind of to the end of the class. But I would really, really recommend that you have a notebook and that you write some of this stuff down that he's talking about. And I think he very effectively visually demonstrates, you know, how to create form, okay, using color and value, right? So anybody got anything that we need to say before we jump into this? It's going to be a minute. All right, everybody got something to write with?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. So away we go. So wake up, pay attention. I actually got too much stuff to share today. We're not going to get through all of it. And that's okay. We can talk about it later. All right.
What's his name?
Eric
his name is Garen Baker.
Garen Baker.
Yeah. All right, everybody see this Art School Live with Eric Rhodes?
I see it.
Okay, good.
Always make it so. You can find all that out at Nesto Live. Anyway, Garen got his palette set up, and we're going to turn it over to him.
All right, thank you, Eric. So I've made today the surface of my palette, the larger sort of split screen, because I really want to play on my palette and look at my palette as the playground, because nothing happens on the linen or the canvas or your drawing board until it happens on the palette first. And you can't see, but off to the right, or it might be left, I don't know if it's flipped for you, I have odorless turpentine, a Gamsol I use, and I'm just going to grab, you know, a nice size brush, you know, a big sort of large bristle brush, probably a number 6, and we're going to just very quickly, we're going to create a scale, okay? And it's going to be basically everything that you see is either how dark it is or how light it is, because it's not as though we're painting things in particular, we're really painting light. And so light is that variable between how light it is and how dark it is. So very quickly, we're going to create that.
When you talk to scale, you know, I've not heard it used in the term scale before, but it's like a music scale for painting.
That's correct. That's correct. Well, in music, they call it, it's like notes, high notes or low notes. And obviously the highest note is the lightest, as brightest you can get. And when I think about white, I think about the brightness of the sun. Basically, as bright as you can go on a two-dimensional surface would be either titanium white or a stacked white or a lead-based white. But I'm going to start with white on this end. I'm going to make sure I clean my brush with my rag. I always have a rag handy. You can't see me dipping in the turpentine, but it's just up to the right here. And I'm going to grab the black because I don't want to muddy the black by having white paint in my brush. So I grab the black and I put the black over here and I start introducing them to each other.
Black meet white.
That's right. And lo and behold, very quickly, I've created a scale. So everything you see in your visual field is somewhere along that scale. It's either the brightness of the brightest part of the painting, vis-a-vis the sun, or the darkest part of the shadow, cast shadow, or even this would sort of represent being in a closet without any light source visible at all. You couldn't see the hand in front of your face. And so by understanding this simple principle and actually creating it on your palette, maybe in the lower portion of your palette, just this simple principle here, understanding the scale and evaluating what you're seeing. Obviously, I paint mostly from life, and evaluating what you're seeing in relationship to how light it is versus how neutral it is, and these would be neutrals in here, and then shadows in here, and then my lights in here, and then obviously highlights and really, really dark shadows. And in a sense, this is the format or the sort of the building blocks, the largest building block on the bottom of the pyramid that you're now going to build on top of in terms of temperature, in terms of hue, in terms of saturation, and all of those other wonderful things. But you've all heard that saying. It's a very important saying, and I say it to my students all the time. Color gets all the celebrity, gets all the fanfare in paintings, but value does all the work. If your values are right, if your values are in an organized sort of fashion, whether it be the composition, things in the foreground being more contrasty, things in the distance being more closer, more or less contrasty. If your values, if you're always checking your values, your painting is going to read from 100 feet away. And if your composition is enticing, and obviously your subject matter is captivating, that painting is going to beckon the viewer. It's literally going to call them to come closer. And I find that with art, every step a viewer takes towards your painting, the moment they continue to be satisfied is the closer they get. The moment they get a bit of tinge of unsatisfied, where they're unsatisfied, they walk away. There are lots and lots of paintings to see. So I try to really hone my skills in terms of understanding this value scale and really checking as I'm developing my painting so that I'm within the right value scale, because I know it does all the heavy lifting in any painting or any work of art you see. So why don't we move on to something I call just the warm and cool lights and shadows. And I'm going to do something very basic.
And will you do me a favor, Garrett?
Sure,
you're
Garrett.
so good. I just put a comment in that you're such a good teacher.
Oh,
I painted for 10 years before anyone ever even explained warm and cool to me. And I was so confused about which colors are warm and which ones are cool, because the things I thought were cool were warm, you know, like a warm blue. So will you just give us a quick overview of what all that means?
Okay, so everyone, you know, light, the daylight, artificial light, there are many, many, I mean, I couldn't even go into all of the light sources that you can paint under. And I couldn't even go into the hundreds and millions of variations of light. Every moment of the day, cloud cover, overcast, or even if you're in the studio, the bouncing light off walls, the atmospheric light. I mean, there are just so many, but there are some basic, simple principles that if you practice, and these really need to be practiced so they can become sort of second nature, so that they can become your automatics, so that you really don't have to think about them anymore. It's sort of like a kinship with when you're a teenager and you're learning how to drive a car. You have to think about everything. You know, key in the ignition, foot on the brake, hand on the gear shift, check every mirror. When you drive a car, well, I'm you know, well above 50 these days. When I drive a car, I don't even think about those things. So the more you do it, the more you practice these basic kind of understandings, the more they become second nature to you, and you don't even have to think about them anymore. So I'm going to do a simple one, which is a warm light and a cool shadow. Now, we use a lot of that in the studio because we usually light the model with a spotlight, and it's usually a warm light. But now you have LEDs, and you can play around with all different kinds of cool light. But basically, a basic principle is a warm light, a cool shadow, or a cool light and a warm shadow. You really don't very often find, very rarely, cool light, cool shadow, or warm light, warm shadow. It's the cool shadows that make your lights feel vivid and rich and alive with light. It's the cool lights that make the shadows look warmer, and so forth and so on. So it's the balance between the two, and those two principles in any given situation, whether you're in the studio or whether you're outdoors. And I'm going to mix both of them. I'm going to start with the warm light and the cool shadow. So I'm going to start basically very simple with the shadows. And I'm not going to overthink it. I'm going to think basically like a child, and I'm going to grab cool, a blue. Now, obviously, that's so rich and way too blue to be a shadow. Well, it could be in a neon light situation, but in a normal sort of even studio light situation, there's my cool shadow. But in order to neutralize it and get to more of a gray, I'm going to go to its opposite on the color wheel. This is also a very important thing, is to start getting more familiar with the color wheel. So opposite of blue on the color wheel is orange. And I'm going to use this, and I'm going to bring it in. And I'm going to introduce them to each other. And there we go. There we have a neutral, cool shadow. Can you see that, Eric?
Yeah, you make it look so easy.
Okay, now if I want to lighten it up a little bit, then I just grab maybe a little white. But I don't want to put it right in the middle. I want to put it over here. And I want to introduce it, again, slowly, creating another scale. And so what I'm trying to get across to many students and viewers today is to start mixing in scales, is to continually mix in transitions, rather than trying to match or copy one particular color. And at the end of the painting hour or 2 or 3, your palette looks like a patchwork quilt. Your palette should really start to look like a series of musical notes and scales. So I'm going to do a very simple, I'm going to get a little bit more paint, I'm going to do a very simple sphere. And I'm going to use this cool shadow right here. And you can see it on my painting. So I'm just going to mass it in. I'm not even going to draw it out, because really.
Okay, I want to stop it right here. All right. So really watch what he does here, okay? Because this really explains this whole idea about creating three-dimensional form on a two-dimensional surface. You got a flat canvas. So he's going to start working in color, but keep in mind, everything he does is based on value and temperature.
There are no outlines. There are no outlines in reality. I've never woke up a day in my life and saw things with outlines around them. I see
So
things.
You don't paint with outlines even when
No, I don't paint. I don't paint. Try not to, Eric. No. So I've had my cool shadow established, and now I'm going to paint my warm light. So now over here, I'm going to put white, maybe a little red, maybe a little Naples yellow. You notice how I'm putting them separately. I never put them on top of each other. I always mix in scales. I can always know where, from whence I paint. I always can backtrack and find how to get that color again, because I can see all three of them. And so by exercising this modus operandi, by exercising this process of seeing scales and transitions, I can paint my lights now.
Where did you learn this? I've never seen it. I've seen a lot of the principles, but I've not seen it done in the way you're doing it.
Eric, these ideas, these scales, these ways of mixing color, they go back a long ways. They go back to the French Academy. They go back to, obviously, late 19th century representational painting. The Impressionists expanded on this idea and principle. Many painters, the Russian masters, picked that up from European masters, Sargent, Zorn. But there's always that discussion about Zorn with the limited palette. But actually, Zorn had lots of colors in his studio. But the point is that they understood how to diffract light. And basically, it goes back to science class. And during the late 17th century, late 18th century, early 19th century, there was a tremendous amount of interest in science, in the properties of light. And so they took that prism, back when you were a kid, the science teacher took a beam of light, shined it through a prism, and diffracted the light into its properties. And basically, that's my palette, from white, yellow, red, green, and blue. And so these are all the transitions. And you'll notice each color I have is a light, medium, and dark, light, medium, and dark, and so forth down the line. And basically, it's an expansion of that diffracted prism taking a beam of light and breaking it up into its properties. The real trick is to put all of those pieces of the puzzle back together into a visual field of a recognizable piece of subject matter. So let me put down with this.
That talks a lot about a spectral palette. Is this a spectral palette?
Well, it's a print because sometimes they call it a prismatic palette.
Well, that's what it's prismatic.
The prismatic has to do with hues and variations on the primary colors. What this is, I call this like a chromatic palette because basically it deals with the primary colors and it deals with 2 or 3 variations off those primary colors. I find that with the primary colors, white, yellow, red, green, and blue, you can pretty much paint anything.
Hey, by the way, if you guys watching this like it, hit the like button, share button so other people see it.
So now I'm going to turn this to light and shadow into a sphere. So now a sphere obviously is in relationship to whatever is around it. So I'm just going to mix a darker color. I'm going to use it just out of my imagination, a dark background. So you can see that I purposely choose to mix my darks on this quadrant of the palette. You see, this side's going to be my shadows. This side's going to be my lights. And I try not to confuse the two. I have a great friend of mine who passed away a few years ago. He was from Brooklyn. He was from Bay Ridge in Brooklyn. And you might get a few kick out of this story, but he used to tell his students, the lights are like the Castellanos and the shadows are like the Gambinos. And if you mix your lights and shadows together, somebody's going to get rubbed out. I love that story. Anyway, so let's play around with a little dart. And we're basically going to carve this sphere out of space. We're going to find it. We're going to find the edge of it. And before you know it, these lights and shadows, now we can play with edges now. And now we can play with a little reflected light, which is obviously on a white cloth. I'll just put that in now. If we're on a white cloth here. And it's
Aaron, I would pay big money to be able to move to New York and study with you.
Well, we're gonna paint a little cool shadow off that light. And there's also variations I'm playing with, like right at the base, it's going to be slightly darker. As it moves into the atmosphere of the room, it's going to catch more atmospheric light. And now we're going to take that cool shadow and we're going to play into the shadow color that I mixed previously. Look at the scale, another scale I'm building. And I'm going to find a reflected light on this side.
I'm going to encourage everybody watching this to watch it again and try to do it.
And now I'm going to find this reflected light here. And before you know it, this thing, if you squint your eyes, you're going to build up some light on the light side. And before you know it, this thing can be lifted off the page. And in what, 7, 8 strokes of paint? It's a round object in space. And this is really the fun part when you can start honing this and really playing with some of the edges, some of the transitions that take place in here, and playing with all of this fun stuff. I used to have a great teacher when I was a teenager. I was very fortunate to have some wonderful teachers. His name was David LaFell, and he taught at the Art Students League. And we used to play with these ideas of how to bleed the light so that it actually starts to glow. Especially, I don't know if you've ever seen his still lifes, but they literally glow. And so by using some of these edges and bleeding the light into the background, you can make these things really unbelievably realistic. I mean, you can go as far. When I was younger, I was a big fan of, photorealism, but you can go as far as to make this incredibly, incredibly realistic.
Gary, I hear all the time from people who say things like, I don't want to start out with cones and balls because it's boring. It's so important.
Well, let's do a head. How about we do a real quick head study? Now, I'm going to do it out of my head.
Well, you can do me. I'll pose for you.
Well, let's start with some cool shadows. I'm mixing that cool shadow again. Opposites, the blue, the orange, lighten it up a little bit. I'm going to mass in this side of the head. Not even going to worry about drawing. I'm just going to mass this in.
Watch Naomi.
Now I'm going to mass in the light side. Rich red, white, old Naples yellow. Let's keep it rich and red. So we're going to stay on that side of the hue spectrum. Now, whenever you're painting a head, it's very important to keep in mind, the bone structure, the skull structure. And depending on the angle of the head, up or down or left to right, the cheekbones are crucial. So I'm just going to make a mark where those are. And on the far side in the light, I'm going to paint the rich red of the ear. A lot of blood capillaries on the surface, so that the ears, the nose, usually have a lot more richness to them. And so now, by defining where those cheekbones are, I can find where the eye sockets are, and my proportions will be accurate. So the cheekbones, I'll just make them a little darker so you guys can see it. And so the eye sockets are going to be here. One, and then the other. And then the shadow under the nose. And maybe there's a little bit of light on the far cheek, because the nose is casting the shadow. So maybe there's a little bit of light on this cheekbone right here. And the bit of a deeper shadow in the corner here, casting down. And so very quickly, you can start to see the form develop. Let me pull out a little bit more white. Don't spare the paint. That's another great Sargent quote. Keep pushing it out, pull it out. Don't get lazy by over mixing on your palette. Keep grabbing more paint. We all have those tendencies, It's best to keep those things right close to you. All of our demons, our laziness in those things. Recognize them. Challenge them. Cheekbone, ridge of the nose. The richness, the base of the nose. Now we paint the muzzle, which is that muscle that goes from the bottom of the nose all the way to the underneath the chin. And now the shadow under the bottom lip. A lot of people, they paint the lips and they paint them very linear. They try to outline them, sort of like the Rolling Stones. You ever see that logo for the Rolling Stones? Yeah. With these outlines for the lips. They're kind of like this. Yeah. But the lips are actually a complete muscle from the bottom of the nose to the shadow, which I'm going to place right now, underneath. And if you find where the corners are, it becomes much easier to find where these things are. Now let's play a little with that reflected light.
I think if I would have studied with you, you would have saved me 20 years.
Well, you got to
people watching this today are very lucky because you're seeing things that if you just, again, you watch this and you try to do what he's doing here, it's going to blow you away in terms of how rapidly you're going to get to likeness.
I'm putting in the reflected light on the far sides of the form. And you're always correcting as you go, making sure your proportions are in the proper alignment and your values. Now the eyes are always an interesting element. They are orbits, round balls inside a socket. So if you can continually feel as though it's a ball, and by thinking one right side of the ball, and not worrying about the eyelashes, and the eyelids, and all of those details, but if you capture the fact that one side of it is light, one side of that ball is light into the shadow, one side of that ball is light. Before you know it, he's got eyelids. And so all of these principles, it's blocking his forehead, all these principles really come to play.
Here, and a lot of portrait artists will use a brown or for their dark shadow, and you're using, basically you're starting with a blue. So your shadows have a lot of greens in them if they mix down.
Well, that's true, Eric. I don't really use the browns on my palette on my neutrals. They designate the warm side of my palette to the cool side of my palette. I very rarely, even while painting, African skin tones or olive skin tones, I very rarely use the browns. I'm always using the primary colors. Now, if my skin tones in the shadows go too green, then I go to the opposite, which is red, and I slightly warm it up. And I can find all of those rich colors because when you do use the browns, it tends to take the chromatic quality of the paint out of it. It makes the skin tones look more mannequin-esque and without light and freshness to them. And I noticed that a lot of students, they use a lot of browns and in their skin tones. And I try to, show them that they don't necessarily have to use all those browns. They can play around with these complementary colors.
Wouldn't you say that a lot of the academic schools are kind of focusing on using browns in the shadows?
Mainly because in the first couple of years of that kind of training, coming out of cast drawings, and then doing grisaille, they're doing a sepia, like a grisaille painting. And so a lot of their underpaintings are done in warm sepia tones. And so it's just an automatic kind of the next step is then to start glaze in color. I did a lot of training like that when I was younger, but as I get older, I like to kind of paint more. I love the signature of the brush stroke. I like to see the paint. And, when I was, not to say that there's not one better way or not, some of those wonderful academic studies and paintings are, they blow me away. They're like unbelievable. I look at them for, take for instance, like a Bouguereau. I've been to the Met many times from New York, and, I stand in front of a Bouguereau for a good long time. The ears got a little bit more richness, so I added some warmth to this side of his face. But we're still in the right values, still in the right relationship of values in order for it to read as something that has form or volume, an object that has volume in space.
Barbara says this is the greatest portrait painting lesson. I agree. I have not watched your video yet, Garen, but I'm going to do it this weekend if I can. Because I just can't wait. This is so good.
Well, I'm going to also use that same principle. I'm going to carve his head out of in space.
Don't get a big head just because you're getting.
Well, no, I'm not. Listen, Eric, I've been painting a long time. I paint from life not every day, but at least 4 or 5 times a week. And
you do it once a week, but I kind of gave it up.
And now I'm going to carve this side of his jawline, his neck, and before you know it, we're going to have a guy. We're going to have some kind of, made-up guy.
You need a name. Put everybody in the comments. Put the name that you want to give the guy. Aaron, there's a principle some artists use where they'll use a dark background on one side and a lighter background on the other.
Yep. I do it sometimes when we pose the model, because we're using a lot of times a spotlight in the studio. Right behind them, there'll be a really strong, what we call a hot spot, and then as the light sort of dissipates towards the edges. So a lot of times, even if you look at Velázquez, which is one of my great favorite portrait paintings of all time, everyone who's interested in painting a portrait or a head should really really study this painting. Juan de Pareja by Velázquez is no more than 32 inches large. You can get a high-res image of it with the Museum of Metropolitan online. They have their exhibits online. And if you take a really close look at that portrait painting, it's called Juan de Pareja by Velázquez. It's really a lesson in not just great form and color and virtuosity, but the part about portrait painting where he's going beyond the skill, beyond the academic, and he's getting to the soul and the person and behind the eyes. And that's really what the video is all about. It's trying to discover how to get to that kind of realism, that sort of realism that's underneath the surface, the realism that gets inside your craw, so to speak. And when you touch that kind of humanity, when you touch that piece of lightning, in a sense, every person that sees that painting, who we're all human beings, obviously, is going to feel what that person or what that artist is trying to communicate. And, there are other examples of that. John Singer Sargent's Lady Agnew does that. I saw that painting a few years ago with the Frick in New York City. And that painting, it's as though Lady Agnew is sitting right in front of you. He, once in a while, after 1,000 head studies and, quite a few, academic drawings and star studies, once in a while, you catch a little bit of lightning and you get that truth about that person. Glisten in their eye, their slight twist of their lip, the gesture in the way they're sitting, and that transcends all, in my opinion, it's just me, all academic, painting. It just is about painting something that is truly a human moment.
Hey, Garen?
Yes?
I got an idea for you.
Okay.
I'm going to put a big challenge on you. Ready?
Uh-oh. Yeah.
All right. Now, because I want to demonstrate how the ball and the form impacts the face. I want you to now take that ball and turn it into a face.
Oh my God! Well, you just put some eye sockets in.
Yeah. Well, let's see you do it. Let's see how good you really are.
All right. So we're going to take.
But I want everybody to notice that before he does that, look at the reflected light on the face. Look at how the shadows and the lights hit and the highlight. You didn't put a highlight on the face yet, anyway.
Not yet. Well, here, let's grab one. We'll put one in.
Okay.
Okay. There you go.
There we go. All right. Now we're going to turn the ball into a face.
All right. That's.
All right, you may hate me for this, for embarrassing you.
How much? Eric, what do you got? 30 seconds? I don't know. So let's start with the eye socket. on
Well,
one
you
side.
don't put the cheekbones in first. You're not.
I know.
following
But
advice.
I'm gonna have to change the drawing a little bit. But that's okay. Put the cheekbones in. All right, Eric, you're absolutely right. You caught me there. So there's the cheekbones. Let's put the eye sockets in. Oh my God, I'm running out of paint.
He's painting
How much time
Pac-Man.
you got, Eric?
You're okay, Garrett. I'll let you run a little longer.
All right. So let's put the eye sockets in. Let's get that shadow under the nose. And we're going to have to extend it down, give her or him a jawline. I don't know what we got for. We kind of got a Martian. Let's give him or her a jawline. On the shadow side and on the light side. You notice how my palette still stays lights, shadows, reflected lights. I stay within this discipline throughout my entire painting process. It's really an advantageous way to start understanding light, is to really create this on your palette, and also the transitions that you can build. That's really, I think, the most important thing. If you practice these kinds of principles over time, you'll notice a tremendous growth in your work. Let's put a light on the side of the nose.
The comments are so funny. You got baby Groot, or Groot. You got emoji.
Let's give him a 5 o'clock shadow. So we're going to take this cool, we're going to neutralize our light a little bit with that slight cool. We're going to give him a 5 o'clock shadow.
Now, it was Elf the Tank that he told me that he tried that 310 or it's kind of green in the chin area because of the 5 o'clock shadow, red in the middle area, and I don't remember yellow in the top area. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, also, you know, the camera is doing a little bit in terms of responding and punching certain colors. So you're seeing this area right here is very green. But in the actual painting, it's more gray than it is green. But I can modulate that by adding a complement to green, which is a little bit of red. But I don't want to go too warm that it's going to compete with the lights. I want to keep it neutral. And let's put in his ear.
You guys are having fun watching this. Make a comment, do a share, and make a comment about what you've just learned so that other people will see it and go, oh, I need to go check this out. Not a comment in our comments, but sharing it.
Well, the video is really fun because we start with some really interesting sort of light drawing, and then we do some study, like a head study, but it turned out into doing a figure study in the studio. We do some location scouting around my property. I have a pretty interesting 1790 old stone house and barn and carriage house that I've renovated over the years. Still renovating it. You know, I always sold
100 years older than mine, and mine's 100 years old.
Well, we're always renovating. Next year, we're slated, we're going to do the roof. Oh my God, that's going to be a huge project. Anyway, so we're always renovating. We're always doing projects around here. My wife did a beautiful vegetable garden this year.
Mike sends video so he can get his roof project
done. That's right. Yeah, and buy lots of them because we're doing a slate roof.
Oh no! Oh man, that's not expensive.
I actually, I did the slate roof myself, or with a couple of friends and some people that I learned how to do it from. I did the slate roof on my barn about 15, 20 years ago. And so now the house, when you're renovating an old place, you start in one place and then you come full circle and then you find out you got to start all over.
We don't want you on ladders
anymore. No. So we have a wonderful crew that we're going to get out here probably next spring. Hopefully it'll hold up another winter. So I don't know, Eric, does my Martian look like a person already? I don't know.
Patrick Stewart.
Well, let's give him some light on the far cheek.
I'm pretty impressed.
Pull that cheek forward.
Well, the point I wanted to make in this is that the ball had all the elements in it for the most part, and
absolutely.
You just had to add a couple of things.
It's really
reflecting light on the cheek and so on.
what I was really, shooting for today was to help people to understand it's really light on form. And the way you orchestrate the light is how we read the form. And if you can establish a solid sense of form, all the details fall right into place. They really do. But a lot of people, they go after it sort of shooting for those details before they have a sense of volume and form. And they sort of render the life out of it. It gets flatter and flatter and flatter. So if you can really start with that principle, that ball, the strong shadow, strong light, reflected light, and mixing these transitions, practicing these things a little bit over time, your painting will really grow and develop.
It might be a good idea when you're learning to do this is just to do a little ball up in the corner of the painting so you kind of establish that as a reminder and then lay in your shadows and your form, and then, you can always disappear the ball later.
Well, absolutely. I've obliterated it already, but you remember that black to white scale? Having a scale, painting a scale along the bottom of your painting is always a good exercise as well, because everything you're putting down, whether you're working from life or even if you're working from a photograph. I mean, if you take the photograph you're working from and turn it into a black and white, you can literally see and not necessarily match, but you can discover all the right transitions and all the right place along that scale. I'll do one real quickly, right along the bottom.
Okay. Value's Trickus in color.
Well, this is value. So, and that's what I'm.
Okay, so before they get too deep off into other things, right? Did any of you get anything out of that?
That was a wonderful video. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, it's so simple, but he just covered. He just covered just about everything we've ever talked about, within that like little 20-minute segment right there. And he demonstrated, how to create volume and form on an abstract shape. And then he took that and then he applied it to another, form, which is a human head, something that we a lot of us want to paint and draw. And, he broke it down very simply again. And notice, when he started off with all that, it was just patches of color, a shadow side, a light side, And then he began to kind of flush out, the different structures. Naomi?
I wish that demonstration panel was a little bit bigger.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you're so inclined, they're pushing the video,
right.
And he does, I think it's like a 2.5 hour long video. And, again, he's got a great way of explaining and demonstrating, those really basics, they're really simple basic principles.
What does he normally paint? What the subject matter? Is he a portrait painter?
Well, portraits and figures, mainly figures.
I like the way he started with the ball.
Yeah, we'll look at a lot of his work on Wednesday. I'll download a bunch of it and we can kind of go through it. But yeah, mainly he's a figurative painter, and but yeah, it's that whole idea of even when he painted the ball, what did he start with? See, he put in a big patch of color for the shadow. Then he put in a big patch of color for the light, kind of up against each other. And then he began to, break that down, reflected light, highlight, beginning to break it in to those 5 steps, that you need to turn form, right? And everybody knows what those are, right? You got shadow, you got light, you got a core shadow, you got highlight and midtone, and then reflected light. And so, you know, if you get those on there, you're going to have a form. It's going to have dimension. And you see, he didn't start off by drawing a circle. You know, he put in those light and darks first, and then he cut around the background to begin to create that form. And you can do the same thing with anything that you paint. You know, you can take, let's say you're painting a flower. Well, you could take a big patch of purple or whatever. You could even gradate it, you know, from like a, you know, a light violet, you know, to a dark violet. And then you can begin to paint in the background around it and cut in, you know, those shapes and forms, you know, but you address that light and shadow first. Say, you know, what's really going on there? You know, how is the color transitioning? You know, how is it changing? And then you worry about, you know, the drawing part of it, you know, and creating, you know, a recognizable, you know, abstraction or shape of it. And so, you know, it's a great approach. You know, it's a great approach to.
I was glad the second person was there, so he could ask the question. Yeah, that he kind of felt like the audience wanted to know the answers to.
Right. Yeah.
Because like when he made him go back to the circle and show us how to paint the face from just a circle.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, you know, he talked about value. He talked about temperature and, you know, how light, you know, really, when it comes down to it, you may think that a flesh tone is a particular color. And that's not true. Because the only thing that makes flesh tones look the way they are is the light that they're in. You know, I don't care how dark of a complexion or how light of a complexion your skin tone is, or the person that you want to paint, whoever the subject is. Under different light, those colors will totally change.
And that's true of even a blade of grass. Like sometimes in my yard, I think, oh, what is that? And when I get close to it, I realize it's just sunlight shining on it, you know.
Right.
I just shadows. Yeah, that's true almost of everything.
Yeah, and see, that was the whole thing about the Impressionist, is that, you know, they weren't painting things. See, and you know, it was academic painters for many years, you know, for literally centuries, had been painting those things, and they knew basically the same things that the Impressionists did. But the Impressionists took the different approach of, okay, well, we're not painting the thing, we're painting the light.
Oh, okay.
You know, and how the light affects the thing. And so, you know, if you take those two different ideas and you begin to merge them together, you've got basically modern painting, you know, or modern representational painting. Okay. Because, you know, that's the thing that the American Impressionist and then the whole representational painting movement has kind of done, is they've merged that academic painting from the Renaissance through to, you know, about Impressionism, and they've taken Impressionism forward and they've combined all those different ideas together into what we call contemporary painting now. So, yeah, that's where we're at. Anyway, anybody got any questions about any of that stuff? Anybody like anything in particular, or not like it, or?
Was that oil or was that acrylic that he was using?
He was using oil. Yeah.
Okay, good. I mean, his paint were all so liquidy, basically, and are all sticky.
Yeah.
Well, the two guys.
Huh?
Eric is a painter, but what about Gary Baker? What he is?
He's a painter.
Oh, but he didn't show anything of his own.
No. Eric Rhodes was the moderator. He's the guy. He is, well, he's a publisher. He's a publisher of Plein Air Magazine, Art
The guy that I
Connoisseur.
like.
Huh?
Yeah, the guy that I'm glad I had. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I understood the way around. I thought the painter was Eric, so the painter is Gary Baker.
Garen Baker is, yeah, the artist. But,
Artist. Okay.
you know, Eric Rhodes is a very good painter all on his own. You know, but, you know, he's kind of capitalized on this whole representational plein air, you know, alla prima painting movement, you know, in the world right now. And, you know, he's working as a publisher. And, you know, so he's involved in all of these different events around the world about plein air painting, stuff like that. But he's made a good amount of money, you know, out of doing that stuff. So.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting how he talked about the strong shadow and the strong light, but then the transition. And I think that, I don't know about other people, but that's one of the things that I have a challenge with sometimes is the transition of colors. And because many colors come from that. And then with all his colors laid out on his palette there, and you can see how he kind of mixed them and everything. I think you really have to have a good eye and a good sense of what you're doing to be able to then take those colors and apply them. And then even he was adding colors to the colors as he went along, but then making the transition when after he put down the light colors, the little light, and then real dark, and the dark shadows, is how to make that transition so that, as you say, you can turn form and it won't look like you just threw paint up on a square or a ball or some kind of head, a figure.
Well, a lot of what he was doing, and he would start with a color like blue, right, as a shadow, right, because it's cool, right, and then he went directly across the color wheel to orange. So he was always using direct complements. Okay. When his colors started shifting to the green side, right, and a lot of those shadows got kind of greeny, what did he do? He went to the red. Well, he went to the red.
Red, okay.
Again, so, you know, red and green are direct complements. Blue and orange, direct complements. Yellow and violet, direct complements. See? So he's always working, you know, when he's trying to modify his color and stuff, he's always working in that direct complement to whatever he's starting with. So if it's more green, it's red. If it's more blue, it's orange. And that way, you know, the colors are cohesive and they kind of hold together or have what we call harmony in them. So, all right. You know, I'd recommend, you know, if you guys have the time, you know, go back and watch that video. It's on YouTube. You know, watch it a couple of times, you know, take some notes. You can learn a lot from it. But honestly, there's so much stuff out there. And if you just look up like Streamline Publishing on YouTube, they have lots and lots of demos from lots of different artists. And believe me, there's probably 200 or 300 videos that they have out there, and painters painting all kinds of different subjects: portraits, figures, landscapes, still lives, you name it. You're going to find somebody out there who you kind of click with and really like their work, the way they use color and stuff like that. And just, you know, I mean, spend a little bit of time, you know, watch a video, take some notes. But don't only just watch the video, take some notes, then go sit down, get a little paint, get a little color out, and play with some of the things that they were talking about. You know, try it, right? You know, get your hands into it a little bit, and you know, try it out. Give it a little test drive. It may work out perfectly fine. You know, you may have to do it 2 or 3 times. You know, but you'll begin to pick up the ideas and the principles, and it will really make a big difference in what you're doing. You know, the effect of your work. All right.
All right.
So
See
does
you Wednesday.
everybody feel inspired now?
Yes.
Everybody going to go run off and put a little bit of paint on a canvas, or make a few marks on a piece of paper or something like that? Okay. If so, my job is done.
Yes.
All right. We will see you tomorrow at 2:00. Okay.
Okay.
So send me some
All right.
stuff you've got, anything you're working on. Okay.
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 All right.
Thanks for coming and happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Thank you.